And we are recording.
Great.
So welcome everyone. My name is Donnie Lowry, and this is my beloved partner, Kirk Pry. And we are delighted to welcome you all back to another episode of Queer Tribe Conversations. And we're every so often, about once a month or so, we interview a queer illuminary and ask him questions about his journey. And let's see, we're just gonna mute there and mute there. There we go.
Here we
Okay,
go.
so good. So we have with us Brock Ford, and I'm going to read you his biography. Now, we always have a biography, so you kind of know the context of the person that we're going to interview. This biography is a little on the longer side. However, it's well worth hearing it.
Absolutely.
It's well worth hearing it.
You can shorten it if you want.
Oh,
no. It's every word of it's juicy. So thank you.
You need to. Oh, so let me tell you about Brock and who our interviewee is. As a young man growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, Brock enjoyed strong ties to his family. But when he came out at the age of 22, his life and family relationships were shattered. Brock's uncle and his grandfather, a Southern Baptist minister, violently assaulted him, demanding that he leave town. His family declared that they would rather see Brock dead than live in disgrace. Only Brock's older sister and his mother refused to disown and disavow him. Brock fled to Dallas to begin a new life, his family ties severed forever. In Dallas, Brock found a new career with the Dallas Morning newspaper, and he began building a new life and making a new family. Although he was excited about the possibilities ahead, Brock always hoped that his family would find a way to love and accept him. 8 years later, Brock accepted a job in Bakersfield, California, and ultimately moved to San Francisco in '96, becoming associate publisher of Frontiers magazine. That was a former GLBT publication. In 2005, Brock made a dramatic career switch and he became a successful realtor and trainer. Love, romance, friendship, and heartache all flowed into Brock's life over time. However, Brock's family continued to condemn him. Throughout those years in Dallas and San Francisco, Brock had a growing sense of awareness that there were others just like him, homosexuals, people of color, and most especially people that had been ousted, hurt, and abused by their family. Brock's burgeoning awareness of these disenfranchised people was becoming a calling. Then in 2018, the most important person in Brock's world, his older sister, suddenly died. A few short months later, his mother also died. When Brock returned to Tennessee to bury the only family members who had shown him love, he was met with the same threats, animosity, and condemnation his family had heaped upon him over 30 years prior. Grief-stricken, Brock returned to San Francisco. He quit his job, isolated himself, and fell into deep depression. And yet, in the depths of that despair, Brock had a supernatural experience. In that moment of profound spiritual awareness, he was told that it was time to make his calling a reality. He was told to share his story, help others in similar situations, and spread the message of love, compassion, tolerance, forgiveness, and understanding. With the support of friends and guidance from a valued mentor, Brock earned a Master's of Interfaith Religious Studies degree, and he was ordained as a minister in the Science of Mind Religious Science Church. He is currently working on his doctorate in religious studies as he travels the Bay Area, assuring people of all races, denominations, and orientations that they are deserving and capable of love and happiness. He helps families heal and learn alternate ways of communicating and being together.
Wow. Yeah, wow. I get chills just hearing your story. So thank you so much, Brock, for being with us. I'm reminded before we get started on the questions, there's an African spiritual saying that goes, on the other side of the wound is the blessing.
Yes.
And your life exemplifies on the other side of the wound, there's the blessing. And so thank you for being the blessing and sharing with us whatever is on your heart tonight. So
Thank you.
my first question to you, Brock, is simply about the journey, much of which you at least kind of give us some framework in your bio. But tell us about your spiritual journey. Tell us about some of your awakenings that have informed you, that have created the values in you, that obviously are leading you into the calling that you're now present to. So any
Okay.
parts of that, and stories are always good. So
Well, I've got lots of them, so you have to tell me to shut up at some point,
okay,
probably. But
we've got 45 minutes, so there we go.
okay. Well, first of all, thank you both, Kirk and Donnie, for allowing me to be here. I'm very honored and very grateful to be sharing with you guys today. So thank you very much, and for the people participating today. I'll tell you, my calling actually started back when I was about 7 years old.
Mm.
I was told by my family that I was to take over my grandfather's church someday. And so I used to make me a little pulpit and put books up, and I'd get the Bible open and I'd start preaching. And on Saturday nights, I would have my little preaching sermons. And I always questioned my grandfather, because he would tell us, he would preach love in the church on Sundays, and then when we get home, life was a little bit different than what he was preaching.
Mm.
And the first Black family moved into our neighborhood when I was about 7 years old. And I saw them moving in with a U-Haul, and I saw the little boy and little girl out in the yard playing. And so I grabbed my truck, and I was going to go down and meet the little kids and play with that little boy. And my grandfather saw me, and he stopped me, because we lived together. And he said, "Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going to go down and meet that little boy." He's like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Yeah, I am." And he said, "No, you're not. We don't play with those people." And I'm like, I didn't understand. I didn't understand what those people meant. And so he turned around and walked off in the house somewhere. Well, I went anyway. And so this was my first awakening, that people are labeled as different. And I didn't have an understanding of that before this time. And so I went down anyway, and I was playing with a little boy. And I remember the mother asked me if my mama knew I was down there. And I said, "Well, of course she does, Well, I was lying, but at any rate, I wanted to meet the little boy and little girl. So about 10 minutes later, I felt something grab my shoulder, and I looked up, and it was my grandfather. And he apologized for me being there, and then drugged me all the way home, and then proceeded to whoop me, as we called it back then. But that was my first distinction of some people being different. And so I didn't understand that when he would preach, everyone is God's children at church, and God is love, and God makes no mistakes, and all these different types of things. Then all of a sudden, but those people are not loved by God. They're a sin. They've been cursed by God because of some verse in the Bible or something, that they were cursed because they were Noah's son's problem or something that happened. I don't know. But at any rate, so that became the racism that I learned about in my family. And that continued, of course, until this day. It still does. But so that was the first time I realized people were labeled as different. And I had a sincere desire back then to want to befriend every Black person I could meet, because I wanted them to know that I loved them and cared about them, despite what these other white people thought. And it really hit me at 7 years old that I sought Black people out to let them know that I loved them, And then later in high school, and I guess in grammar school as well, I remember Bobby Taylor used to sit next to me in school. I was in second grade. And I kept looking over and looking at Bobby Taylor. And he was really cute, a little blonde-headed boy. And I knew in my mind and in my heart that that was wrong, because I had been brought up with a stepfather that would get on to me for brushing my sister's hair or playing with the Easy Bake Oven, and him telling my mom that, she was going to make a sissy out of me. So I knew the word sissy. And I didn't know about homosexuals or anything to do with sex or anything, but I knew the word sissy was a bad word and that I was a sissy. And so I was very careful, not to let anybody know. I kept looking at Bobby Taylor sitting next to me, in grade school. And then life went on. And in high school, I recall there was an out gay guy, and everyone used to make fun of him, and everyone would mock him and ridicule him and beat him up, and bullies would beat him up. And I did not reach out to him because I was so scared that they would realize I was like that also, because I knew I was like him also. But at that point, I was too afraid to be hurt, to be beat up like he was being beat up and things like that. So I never reached out to that guy. And this reminds me, to this day, I probably should find him and tell him I'm sorry. But at any rate, that's when I knew that I was gay, and I knew the word and the term at that point. And I had to keep that a secret. So long story short, I met a guy when I was in my early 20s. He was my professor, and at school, and we went out for a drink after school one night, and we became lovers and partners. Not really partners, but lovers, and we dated. And the way that I came out was I was having lunch with my grandmother in Memphis, and of all people, to come out to. But she asked me, we were having lunch, and she asked me if I was sleeping with that older man that I was hanging around with. And I decided to tell the truth. And I said, yes, I am. And her plate went up in the air, and she ran out of the restaurant, and I went over and paid the bill. And by the time I could get back home, my grandfather and my uncle were on my doorstep at my house. And that's when, the shit hit the fan, so to speak. And they assaulted me and beat me up and left me in a pool of blood and told me that I need to leave town or else they would kill me. And so I went to the hospital. I got myself to the hospital. And the next day I was leaving, my mom came and she said, you need to leave town because they're planning to kill you. And she said, you have to leave town. And so I didn't know what to do. I was 22 years old. My whole life had been this family, in church. And my grandpa I didn't have a father figure so much as a bunch of stepfathers coming and going. So my grandfather was the man in my life, And I didn't know what to do. So I packed my car, and I knew one gay person from church that was in the choir. And he was actually a friend of my mother's, and he was an older man. And so I knew his phone number. And so I called him and said, I'm in trouble and I don't know what to do. Now I might start crying, y'all. This still hurts every once in a while. But I said, I don't know what to do. And I told him what had happened. And he said, here's my address. Get here as quick as you can. And so I went, and we talked all night long. We sat and talked. And that next morning, he said, let's go to Dallas and just get away from everything. And let's just go have a good time with some friends of his in Dallas. And let's just forget the world. And so we drove my car, which I thought was strange, but we drove my car, which was packed. There was a reason for that. I didn't know at the moment, but we drove my car. We went to Dallas. And that's where I first learned about tribes. I did not know what the word tribe meant. And I know that, since the beginning of time, we've had tribes that are interconnected people learning and growing from each other. And there's a hierarchy of elders and leaders and people that can help us and grow. But I didn't know about all that. But what I knew was this was the only man in the world that could help me at this moment. And so we went to Dallas, and that night we went out to the bars. I had never been out to bars or anything like that, even a straight bar. I didn't drink or anything like that. And we went out to the bars, and I was just amazed. I was just like, oh my gosh, And so we had a good time Friday and Saturday nights. And then Sunday, I woke up and I went downstairs, and my friend David wasn't there. And I asked the guys, they were John and Michael, and this was my new tribe, so to speak. And I said, where's David? And they said he left on a plane and went back to Memphis already, but he left this envelope for you. So I opened the envelope, and in it was a letter. And he said, stay with my friends. They will help you. They will protect you and keep you safe. And he said, don't ever come back to Memphis. Start a new life and go forth and enjoy your life as who you are. And he left $500 cash. And I had already been working for the Commercial Appeal newspaper in Tennessee. So the next day I went to Dallas Morning News. They hired me on the spot. And John and Michael became my family. And they protected me. They watched over me. They took me out to the bars and showed me where to go, where not to go, how to have a drink, what to order. They were there for me for holidays and all those different types of things. They became my first family that wasn't my biological family. And David would fly out every 3 months or so and visit. But needless to say, I got an apartment. I started a life. And I was not as devastated over the months and the year that happened, but I still longed and cried every single day for my family and wanted them to love me. But I had this thought in my mind that if I go and be a huge success and become like a millionaire, I'll go back home and throw money everywhere and they'll love me. You know, that's what was going on in my head back then. Well, that of course didn't happen. And it was about 25 years that I didn't talk or see any of my family. My younger sister, the only people I talked to was my mother and my older sister. And my older sister was the rock in my life. We talked every single day after I left at 10 a.m. and without fail, every single day for 30 years. And so at any rate, long story short, I started a new life. I fell in love. And I had a long 8-year relationship with my first partner, and wonderful life in Dallas. And then I got a call to be recruited to California. And my partner and I talked about it, and he worked with a large corporation, and we've decided to move to Bakersfield. And we both got the same jobs with the same company. Well, mine was a different newspaper, but he was with Kodak, and just transferred. And we started a life in Bakersfield. We were there 1 year and 3 months, and then I got called to the Independent Examiner newspaper. And that's what got me to San Francisco. And I'll tell you, the second tribe that happened for me in my life was when I quit my job because Bob Craig, who owned Frontier, saw me at a party one night. And he asked me to come and be his associate publisher. And I'm like, I don't even know what magazine you're talking about, you know, and I'm a newspaper guy, you know. So long story short, he was a wonderful, wonderful man. I don't know if you knew him, but he's a wonderful man. I took a big cut in pay. I took that job so that it would throw me into the bowels of, so to speak, of the gay world. I wanted to find out what this gay world in San Francisco is all about. So I took the job, and that's where I met Steve Gaines. And I know you know Steve Gaines, a prominent leader in San Francisco, and especially of the leather community. And so I was his boss, so to speak, and he showed me around San Francisco. He took me to events, introduced me to Folsom Street Fair people, Castro Street Fair people, Pride people, all the leaders in town. He introduced me to Mayor Willie Brown and things of that nature. And so that was another tribe, a tribe of caring, compassionate people. And just like the guys back in Dallas, they didn't know me. They never saw me until I showed up on their doorstep with David. But they knew me. They knew of what was going on with me and what was happening, because they had heard of it with their life and with other people's lives, you know, fleeing from their families. And so they opened their house, their hearts, their world to me. And so the same thing happened in San Francisco for me as well. And so I truly believe in tribes. I believe there is a gay or a queer tribe, as we call it. I believe there's been a queer tribe for many, many, many years. You know, I believe that back in the 30s and 40s and 20s and 1800s that men had to know each other. There weren't places to go, and they became tribes to help each other. And then in my particular life, those two different points, the people in Dallas and the people in San Francisco, they became my tribe. They became my family. They educated me. They helped me learn things. And they showed me love and compassion that I hadn't felt from my family for a long time. So I do believe in tribes. I believe that we are a queer tribe. I think we're a thriving queer tribe. I believe that there's future for the queer tribe, that we're only going to get stronger, that it's needed that we get stronger. You know, there's still killings today. People still get killed because they're gay. There's still people, you know, hurting their children because they come out or they find out that they're gay. So I do believe that we need this to go into the future, and that we, as people like you, yourselves, the people on the call here, and myself, have to become those leaders, have to become those visionaries to help people grow and educate, to help empower them to live thriving, successful, happy lives with or without their families, however that happens. So I guess it's my quest. I'll tell you real quickly. You ready for me to shut up or take a break?
No, keep going.
After my sister died, it really rocked my world. I had never felt depression like that before. Not even after my family threw me out did I feel this kind of depression. And I quit my job as vice president of Century 21, and where I've been for 15 years. And I just isolated in my house, and I cried and I cried and I processed. And some of you may not believe this, but I truly feel that the power of whatever the universe is, God, Allah, spirit, divine, whatever you want to call it, that gives us power and life, and reason for being, I went down to my garage, and I actually used to smoke. So I went down to my garage to have a cigarette. And thank God I've quit now, y'all. But at any rate, I went down there, and I was so just saddened when I got down there that I just dropped to my knees, and I just lifted my hands and I just cried out to God. I said, help me. I don't know how to go forward. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to live without my sister. And at that moment, at that split second moment that I cried out, I felt like my blood just became like cold, cold water running through my body, just racing through my body. And like a wind surrounded me, like a tornado almost. And in that moment, I felt the greatest peace I had ever felt in my life. And some have told me since then that it's a quickening of the spirit, or it was the power of, the universe, or whatever you want to call it. And I knew, because I heard the words, that everything was for a reason. Everything was for a purpose. And that it wasn't a sad pity story to tell. It was a story of triumph, of overcoming and transformation. And so I'm like, okay, where do I go? What do I do? How do I go talk to people? And this is what happened. I hadn't been to church in about a year. And I thought, I got to get to church. I need to go to church somewhere. I woke up on a Sunday and said, I need to go to church. And so I went to this little church, First Church of Religious Science. And I walked in, and this Black lady walked up to me, and she said, I need to talk to you after the service. And I'm like, okay, who are you? I don't know who you are. Why do you want to talk to me? And she said, I'm the minister of the church. And y'all, she said she was in prayer and meditation the night before, preparing for her sermon that day. And that my face came to her, and that she was told to let me speak at her church. I dropped to my knees and said, how could you know that the night before I'm begging the universe, telling me, where can I speak? Give me a place to speak. So I knew that it was providence. It was God. It was spirit. It was whatever it is that we call creator.
Wow.
And so that next Sunday I spoke for the first time, and I gave my story of what happened with my grandfather and my uncle. And it was a long story. And they kept, she kept looking at her watch, and the people were like, no, keep talking, keep talking. And I talked for almost an hour. But it was the first time I ever told someone. It was the first time I ever got it out. And it was so freeing and so wonderful. And since then, I've been going around and speaking at different unity churches and religious science churches, things of that nature, and doing some Zoom calls. Yeah. My message is, I guess my quest is to help families heal. That there's an alternative when you label someone as different in your family, or they come out as gay or lesbian, or that they've married a Black guy or a Black girl and you're white. However that difference comes out and they become disenfranchised, there's an alternative way of relating and talking. There's seeking to understand. There's accepting what is, and knowing that in the present moment, we can still love that person, although we don't agree with them or their behavior or who they are. Yeah. And most of it comes from religious beliefs, people mistranslating the Bible and things of those natures, which is a whole nother topic we can talk about. Yeah. And then for people who aren't religious, it's a morality thing, being gay and being lesbian or queer or whatever we want to call ourselves, transgender. And there are so many people still being hurt today. So my quest is, how can I get out there and start helping young gay people know that God loves them, universe loves them, people love them, we love them. We want to hold them and comfort them, lead them, guide them, and show them that their families won't do it. And then as an intermediary, that I can be that person that sits between them and helps them start asking questions, seeking to understand, seeking to know why your son or daughter is gay, knowing that it's not a choice, and then dismantle all the beliefs that you've known because of the Bible or preachers or whomever it may be, so that you can still have a relationship with your child or your cousin or your loved one with new boundaries, new restrictions, if you want to say that word, and that you can still have a relationship based on a different kind of relationship. So that's what I'm about. And so my mentor Martha Creek, whom I adore. She travels the country and the world, actually, teaching what is, and that most of our suffering is projecting things to the future or worrying about things from the past, and we're not living in the moment in what is. And when I met her, it just changed my life. And what it did was it gave me the tools that that I didn't have to go with my heartfelt desire to help gay people mainly, and disenfranchised Black people and people of color. So I took the heart thing that I already had, but didn't know what to do with it. And she gave me the tools of how to go out and do this and talk to people.
Mm.
And it was she that she got me a full scholarship into Emerson Theological Seminary. She said, "Let's get you some credentials." And that's what happened. And so I finished my master's, I got ordained, and now I'm working on my doctorates. And so that's where I am at this point in my life.
Wow.
Take a deep breath, everybody. So,
Yeah, big breathe. Yeah,
Oh.
right.
Oh, wow.
Many deep breaths.
Yes.
yes.
Just to take, well, just to take your story in, to take the emotion of your story in, and to take in the awe of your story. I mean, you know, our work, you know, in Flesh and Spirit, it's all kind of about surviving and thriving and helping people find their greatest potential and listen to, you know, what's their purpose, especially as queer people.
Mhm.
And, you know, you're doing all that. So, and you're doing it with luscious heart, but you're also doing it with a level of just maturity and wisdom. And when you put those two things together, I think, you know, people are very lucky to be able to hear what you've got to share. So I whatever you call it, I'll call it God, Goddess, all that is, and all those wonderful names. I thank you
Yes.
for
Yes.
actually stirring your heart, giving you that calling. What a powerful story about your calling. But it sounds like there were 100 callings that got you to that calling.
It did. You know, I remember a calling when I was younger, when I was just like 7 years old, to go and help, you know, these Black people was my first calling.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be labeled a minister. I didn't want to be anything like my grandfather, who, you know, did the opposite of love and compassion, although he taught it in the pulpit. I didn't want to be anything like the ministers I had met in the South, you know?
Yeah.
So I resisted it, and I thought, I'm just going to go into the corporate world. And that's what I did, and it's what I focused on. And I've had a wonderful, wonderful, great life. I'm so thankful for it. I'm 58 years old, and I've had 2 major partners in my life. And I'm currently living with my former partner. We've been apart for 13 years, but after this transformation happened, he said, "Move home, come back home, and let's be, you know, a team and support each other and help each other." So he's like a brother, a best friend. I don't know what to call it. And he has a doggy daycare business. And so right now during the pandemic, I'm helping him with that. And he's letting me live rent free while I continue my doctorate studies. So it's been a huge blessing. And who would have thought it, because we had a very tumultuous 7-year relationship. And now we're like best friends. So things really changed. The way that we put out our words, the way that we don't allow people to be who they are, causes the friction. When we accept who people are and the way they are, and that it's not personal to us, then we can learn to love them and see the Spirit in them, in everyone we see, in every person we see.
Yes.
And all of humanity deserves happiness and peace and care and love. And so I read the Dalai Lama book, Ethics for a New Millennium, and it really touched my heart that, you know, everyone on this planet, dogs, animals, plants, everything is of the nature of God.
Yes.
And therefore deserve to live and be here. Shut me up or I'm gonna start preaching.
Yeah. Keep it up. Only now preach to. I think you kind of covered our second question, which was all about, are we a queer tribe? So you pretty much yes, and yes, and but the third question is simply about vision. So as queer people, as gay men, as lesbians, as bisexuals, as transgender, as those who identify in that whole genre of queer, what's your vision for us, especially in these unique times that we find ourselves? Black Lives Matter, COVID, economic crisis. What's our role, or who are we in all of that?
I think, and thanks for asking that question. My vision is that we go deeper and stronger and wider in being a tribe to people, and that it reaches not just our queer community,
Yes.
but for all of communities, for all of humanity, and especially Black Lives Matter, all these other things that are going on in the world, and with the White House and all those different types of things, that people need compassion. Everywhere we go, people on the street need compassion, and they need kindness. And so I think that as people like yourselves and people on the call here, it's our duty, our responsibility to go out and reach out to the homeless. There's a guy on I don't know if you see his face, but I see John Schumacher on the line here with us. John and I volunteer for Urban Angel San Francisco, and we go out and feed the homeless on Thursdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And there are so many hurting people that it goes beyond just our queer tribe. But the purpose, the vision that I have is that transformation happens every single day in lives by us being there to hug someone or hold someone's hand, even if it's just one person. And just like with the homeless people, the same scenario. There was an instance the other day where this guy came up and wanted to hit me in the head with a bottle because he said, he was deranged at the moment, and he didn't like the people feeding him stale food or something. But at that moment, I related to, of course, he's got anxiety. He's living on the streets, and we're in the middle of a pandemic. So I remember I put my hand up and I said, please don't hit me with that. And I said, I understand. I said, I'm not homeless, but I can understand your plot in life. I can understand that you've got anxiety right now. Well, of course you do. Well, that started calming him down, and he didn't hit me. And he ended up asking me to pray with him. And so that is what a tribe can do. I don't know if he was gay or not, but he definitely needed help in that moment. But my vision is that it will come to a point, I don't know if we'll see it in our lifetime, where we're not ridiculed, where families don't kick queer people out anymore, where queer and gay and lesbian and transgender people just interact among the world as people, as humans, and that we're not labeled as different. We're not labeled crazy or abominations, and that we're going to hell and die and burn for the rest of our lives. There was an instance when my mother died last year. We had just put her in the ground. I'd gone back to Tennessee twice within 6 months, and to bury my sister and my mother. And it was very difficult for me to get on that plane and go to Tennessee because I did not want to be there.
Yeah.
And so we had just put my mother's casket into the dirt, okay? And it was a very sad thing. And so I was in the back. I didn't mingle with the family or anything. But as they were doing that, I got up to walk away and walk back towards the funeral home. My little sister, who I haven't really talked to in 30 years, her mother-in-law, who I really haven't talked to in 30 years, started calling out to me as I was walking by myself down the path. And I turned around and I said, hi. And she said, I need to tell you something. I said, okay, what? It sort of shocked me. I'm like, okay, what do you need to tell me? I barely know you. And she said, if you don't get on your knees right now and claim Jesus as your Lord and Savior, you're never going to see your dead mama that's being put in the grave right now. You'll never see her again, or your sister, because you're an abomination to God. And I thought, wow. I said, thank God for San Francisco, and thank God for the tribe I have and the people that I love. But I let her know that I knew God and thank her for being concerned, and I turned around and walked off. But it's still out there, y'all. It's everywhere. It's John, my delivery partner there, had one of the homeless people calling faggot the other day, and in San Francisco. She said, the faggots are here to feed us. The faggots are here to feed us. So my vision is that all of that will disappear. There will be a transformation of consciousness in the world where we're not different. Yeah. We're not shameful. There's nothing shameful about us. We are the beacons and light of God. Oh, I'm about to start preaching, y'all. But that's my vision, y'all. That's my vision, is that we become normalized, so to speak, in a way that, and I know some of us don't want to be normal, but you know what I mean by that, I hope. And that there's not a difference, that we are love, we are worthy, we are people, we are humanity, just like you. So that's my vision. And that our tribes help the younger ones, or not necessarily younger, but the people coming into the gay life. They may be 40 or 50 before they come into the gay life. And that we help them, and we help them know they're okay, like those guys did for me in Dallas.
Yeah. How
You
beautiful.
know?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And shortly we're going to open up the lines for others to have questions as well. But
Okay.
you know, one of the recent calls we had was with Reverend Jim Mitulski, and Jim, like you, his whole life of kind of civil rights and service and breaking through all the barriers that keep us, like Rumi says, you know, we're not about seeking love, we're about removing the barriers that to be love.
To be
And
loved.
so, you know, Jim was talking a lot about in this time of as queer people, we've come to some maturity. Some of us have come to a level of maturity and owning who we are, that we really are activated to be more fully of service.
Yes.
What I hear from you is service, 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 service.
And you know, the
Thank
religious
you for
tribe that you bring up with Jim Mitulski, you know, going back to Michael Piazza, who built the Cathedral of Hope. I was there when they were building that church.
Oh yeah,
I
wow.
was at the first service of the brand new church. I was there that day.
Uh-huh.
And Jim Mitulski, I know back from the Frontiers days
Yeah.
as well. And he's been on a spiritual path all over the country, you know.
Yeah.
So, and it was he and Troy Perry and my dear friend in Dallas that I met, Ken Coulter, was the first person to ever tell me that God loved me and that God loves homosexuals. And I couldn't believe a preacher was standing up saying that.
Wow.
And so we became close, very close friends. And he died of AIDS in the 80s. But you know, that's the tribe. That's a huge tribe that happened for our community when the lesbians and the gays pulled together to help the people that were sick. You know, so I think tribes are very, very, very important.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm just reminded in that era when, you know, my life was about kind of studying who's surviving and thriving in the midst of HIV and AIDS, and Michael Kalin and George Solomon and those folks came up with a lot of kind of characteristics of people who tended to live longer and better, but one of those characteristics had to do with just service. And one of those characteristics had to do with staying sexually active and not having shame about it. And one of those characteristics was also about being politically active, meaning that you were involved in movements of change.
Yes.
So I hear all of that embodied in you, which just makes me proud and feel honored to know you. Are there any concrete things? I mean, you've shared kind of heart and concepts. Are there concrete things that you see us doing as a queer tribe, or parts of the queer tribe that were needed right now, that's on your heart?
You know, I didn't think about that question, but just off the top of my mind, yes is the answer. There are concrete things. I think it's up to us individually, as queer people, as gay people, just in our daily life, that we don't shy away from the conversation everywhere that we go. To anyone that we meet that says something, you know, just like the lady that screamed at John the other day about being a faggot. The next time I saw her, I went up to her and said, you know, that's just not right. That's not a word you use for people. And so when we see injustice, we admit it and we talk about the injustice, no matter who we are, and that no matter where we are, unless it's unsafe to do so physically. But that the more we stand up, and we've been doing this, and we've seen growth with this, but we still do need to do it a whole lot more. But I believe there need to be workshops, which is what I'm doing. And I want to reach the families. It's the families that I want to reach that have the biases, so that I can help dispel some of these beliefs so that they can have a relationship with their child or their loved one. So that's one thing, is more people like us getting this word out, like what you're doing. This is a huge service of what you're doing. So I would say those types of things, standing up, joining up with the Human Rights Campaign. You know, Frontiers was a great platform for me, because I got to say whatever I wanted to say in the magazine, you know, and we wrote a lot about spiritual things. You know, and I remember writing about you and what you were doing back then. And still are. So I think things of that nature, but I think that one of the most things we need to do is quit putting each other down, because within the gay community, we still put each other down. We still mock each other, or we don't like this sect of the gay or queer world, or we don't like the transgender sect, or don't associate them with us, or we don't perhaps, and we're still racist as well. You know, we still have racist problems and things of that nature within our community. So I think concrete ways to do that is recognizing everyone is human, recognizing and letting everyone be who they are at the moment, and accepting what is within ourselves. And whatever we can't say nice about, don't say it. You know, just don't say that. But my plot is to go about, like with Jim Matosky, you know, he's a great example as well. And to go where no one else is going, you know, to teach these things to people, and to bring the younger gay people up into the world through our tribe, to respect themselves enough to speak out, to speak up, to vote, you know, and to talk with their families in a loving, kind way that respects the family's belief, but seeks to understand them also and where they came from. It took a lot for me to forgive, even though I didn't forgive them in person. It took a lot for me to forgive my family. And I used it as a pity thing, you know, and I had to let go of that, because that was holding me back. So I hope that answers a little bit of what you asked.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have people. Let's open up the line for other people to ask you questions that also may have some concreteness to them. So.
Yes. So if you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself, and just go ahead and ask the question.
Let me say hi really quick to Marlon. Do you see Marlon on there, guys? He's from the Philippines.
Oh my goodness! Welcome, Marlon.
He's my stepbrother's boyfriend.
Oh, how fantastic! Yay.
Long distance relationship.
Wow! Wow.
Marlon, are you really? You're in the Philippines right now?
Yes, I'm in the Philippines right now.
Oh my God!
Wow!
Oh, we're
beautiful.
so thrilled.
Well, we're grateful to have you among us. Yeah.
Thank you. I'm happy to be with you guys also,
Thank
and
you.
listen to Pia Brock.
Yes.
Discussion.
Yes.
Great. So does anyone have a question they would like to ask Brock, and just kind of draw out some of his wisdom?
I have a comment. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Please.
I just, you know, Brock is my stepbrother, and we're very close. And I just, the word authenticity comes up to me. Everything he said, and also driven and emotional. And those are all great things to have, especially when you can funnel it into something very productive.
Wow. Yeah. Great.
Thank you, Nicholas. I didn't grow up knowing Nicholas. We met about 8 years ago in San Francisco.
Wow.
I grew up with his real father, and we knew that they were out there somewhere, but we found each other on the internet.
Wow.
Wow. How beautiful. And authenticity. So you're seen for the authenticity of what you bring in as your gift, and my word would even be congruence, so that, you know, when we're congruent with ourselves, we heal, and when we're congruent with ourselves, then we actually have a gift to offer others. That's what I see you doing. So thank you. Who else has a question? Jared, please.
Brock, you mentioned that you're a spiritual mentor, the woman that kind of brought you into the Church of Religious Science, or saw you in a vision when she was meditating. What part does meditation play in your spiritual life, if any?
Well, thank you, Jarrett. Thank you for asking that, and thank you for being here today. The lady was, her name is Reverend Dr. Jacqueline, and meditation has been a part of my life for many, many years. My mother was a yoga teacher, and she was into all sorts of things back then, you know, TM, meditation, and she used to take me with her. So I learned about meditation through Silva Mind Control. That's what it used to be called way back when in the 70s. But meditation is a daily practice for me. It calms me. It centers me, helps me be present in the moment. And when I can block out all the noises around me, no matter what's going on, and focus just on the center core of what I am, and that is compassion and love, then I just sit in that. I don't really bemoan anything. I don't ask for anything. I'm quiet and I listen. And in that silence is where my power comes from. In that silence, I hear words. In that silence, I have feelings. And in that silence is where I rest. Does that make sense, Jarrett, at all?
Absolutely. I'm familiar with the teachings of the Church of Religious Science, and the emphasis that Ernest Holmes put on meditation also. I've actually led meditation groups at the local Church of Religious Science, so I'm familiar with some of what you're talking about.
Are you in San Francisco?
No, in Sacramento.
In Sacramento, okay. Well, I came up about the age of 18 through the Unity Church, and I didn't know too much about religious science until my mentor got me involved with it a couple of years ago.
Yeah, Unity is like a sister church to Church of Religious Science.
Yes. Thank you for your comments, Jarrett.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Anybody else have a question before we come to the close of our call? This is your chance to get your nuggets.
Well, real quickly, since there's nobody speaking up,
yes,
I wanted to meet Philip because everyone else I pretty much know and have talked to so far.
Oh, great.
But wanted to see who Philip is.
Yes.
Introduce yourself, Philip. Unmute. He's new to this. Unmute yourself. Top right.
We'll unmute you.
Okay.
There we go. So he doesn't even have to figure it out.
Let's see.
Okay.
There he goes.
Wait a minute. Oh, you do it, Philip. He's doing it, then I'm doing it.
Okay.
Philip, you go ahead. There you go.
Oops. Over here.
There you go. So welcome aboard.
We're still not unmuting him. Philip, let me do it, darling. Let me do it. Here, I'm going to do it.
There.
Almost.
No.
Okay.
The technology of Zoom, we love it and appreciate it when it works.
Yeah, I got it work.
And then we love it and appreciate it when it doesn't.
Let's see if I can do this.
He's working on it now.
Okay. Top right, Phil. Top right. There's little blue boxes. The little blue boxes on the top right of your window. It'll say mute.
There you go.
Okay. Now tell us about yourself.
We can all sing a hymn now.
Well, hi, Philip. I just wanted to thank you for being here. Everyone else I've spoken to and said hi to, but just want to know who you are.
Who am I? In 10 seconds or less, right?
Yeah.
I'm a friend of John. John and I met at the Elizabeth Taylor 50 Plus group at about a year ago, I'd say, John.
Yeah.
And so we've just gotten to know each other. We're friends, and John sent me this link about you, and John often speaks about Brock and the work that the two of you do together, and so I don't know what else you would want to know about me, and
Well,
10th.
thank you for being on the Zoom with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Well,
Yeah,
thank
absolutely.
you. And I'm
Absolutely.
looking forward to maybe John and perhaps even you filling me in a little more on this concept of tribe. That's very new to me. And I think the last tribe I belonged to, they burned me at the stake.
Not a good tribe to belong to.
No, and so I've been avoiding tribes, I suspect, as a result of that experience. And
Great.
so anyway, there you have it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how often does this happen? How often do you?
So about once a month.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you our link.
Oh, which link?
Just to these calls. So Donnie's going to put it in the chat.
Sure.
Just put www.qt.flushing.org.
So I must then subscribe if I want to be part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. If you simply sign in, you'll get messages every month that we're going to do a call telling you who it's going to be. And you can also your question about tribe. There are about 30 men talking about tribe that you can also look at previous callers as well as the content from Brock today. So yeah,
Okay.
so thank you. Yeah, you gave me an excuse to make our public service announcement.
There, yeah.
Very good.
And I do see the link, so I'll go there and I guess I register.
Great. Yeah, absolutely. So in closing, anybody else have any other questions before we close up?
And did we want to ask Brock if you have anything you'd like people to
Yes.
know about, a website, an event, or anything you'd like us to know?
Sure. I have a website. It's real simple, brockford.life, BROCKFORD.life, LIFE. And I do have, I've got some links on there to some of the talks that I've done over in the Bay Area. So you can, those are my YouTube. It'll take you to my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel called Brock Ford Compassion, and it'll take you there. And then also I have a Zoom meeting coming up on August, let's see, what is it? August 23rd at 2 p.m. I'm doing a collaboration on compassion with a dear lesbian friend of mine in Palo Alto. Excellent. Who is a Unity licensed teacher. And so we're going to do talk, just a conversation like what we're having today. It's not a teaching, but it's a conversation on compassion about beliefs, benefits, and brave connections. So that'll be August 9th. That's on my website also. You can sign up for that. And otherwise, check out my website. It's brand new. I just started putting it together. If you see anything that needs to change, let me know. But it's got my workshops on there, my seminars that are going to be coming up, and then what I'm all about and what my message is to the world.
Great. Let's all take a breath. So just soaking in all the good vibes and energy and words and wisdom that has been shared and embodied in all of you who are on this call today, and those who will be listening to it as we send it out probably tomorrow. So Brock, thank you so much for all that you be and do in the world, and may it continue to just magnify in its ability to reach and touch all the people, places, and things that you're called to touch.
Thank you so much, Kirk and Donnie. Thank you for giving me the platform to talk today.
Absolutely. So to all of you, thank you. We'll see you on another Queer Tribe call, hopefully in the future. And namaste.
Namaste to you all. Blessings, guys.